Today I will be processing over 600 grams of gold fingers from computer memory. In this video I will show my quick and efficient method to get the gold off the fingers and into a pure gold button. There are many methods to process gold fingers and they all have advantages. This method allows me to complete an end-to-end refine quickly and with minimal waste. We start by adding distilled water to the fingers. About an inch above the level of the fingers is fine. We'll then add our nitric acid. I'm going to start with about 100 milliliters. If you've watched my videos before, you know the goal here is to remove enough base metal below the gold to release the foils from the fingers. My last video demonstrated using poor man's nitric. This is also one of our faster methods, but nothing beats the speed of pure nitric. Each time the reaction slows, I will check to see if the fingers have released. Here, they clearly haven't. I'll add more nitric acid each time until they do. Getting close, but not quite there yet. The gold foils have lost their grip and are floating free now. We're done with this step. I'll decant and rinse off as much of the nitric from the beaker as I can. Let that cool while we get the foils separated from the fingers. Small rinses with distilled water will get most of the nitric out of here. So here's our spent nitric with the fingers that are floating in it. We're going to filter that in a bit, but now let's turn our attention to these foils. We have a colander on top of a 5-gallon bucket. We're going to dump these in here. A power washer attachment on my garden hose will make quick work of the separation. Once the foils are off the fingers and my hands, I'm going to double check the fingers to be sure we got them all. Looks like we do. So I'm going to get those out of the colander. And we can see here, nothing there. No fingers. There's all of our foils in the bottom of that bucket. Just a little bit of rinse aid. It's going to make sure everything drops to the bottom. Now I will filter the spent nitric solution. Using a filter paper folded up like a coffee filter to keep the foils contained. Once it's done, the solution itself can go into the waste process. Some washes with water will clean off more of the nitric. And here are our gold foils from the solution. I'm going to set that aside for now. Come back to our bucket of foils. We decant off the liquid. They've all settled to the bottom. And there's our foils that we want to work with. Set this aside. And we're going to put those foils into a beaker so we can get back up into the hood. Now I could leave these foils in the filter and process it in Aqua Regia, but it only takes a couple of minutes to wash them into the beaker with the rest, which will make filtering a lot easier later. Finally, I'm going to transfer things into smaller beakers, leaving the few fiberglass fingers in this big beaker behind. You'll see that I'm spraying to get the foils out while I'm keeping those fiberglass fingers up in the beaker. I do this a couple of times to the smallest beaker, each time getting rid of some of the tiny fibrous particles that are still in with the foils. That dirty looking liquid in there is essentially little pieces of fiberglass floating in the water, so we'll transfer those off. We're ready to move on to recovering our gold. We'll start by adding hydrochloric acid to prep for our Aqua Regia. For our Aqua Regia, I started with about 150 milliliters of hydrochloric acid. I'm going to add a couple milliliters of sulfuric acid, which will drop out any lead, and then 3 milliliters of nitric acid, which will start the process of putting the gold into solution. A little heat, and we're off. The reaction is fast. I'm using sulfamic acid to remove any excess nitric acid. This works best when the solution is hot, so I do it now. It actually doesn't look like we had any excess nitric, but we'll add a little just to be sure. Gonna let this cool for about 30 minutes before filtering. Right, back at it. Time to filter. We want to remove all the fiberglass floaters and any other nano-sized solids that we can find. So first time through, lots of fiberglass removed. Solution still looks a little bit cloudy though, so back through one more time. So we're going back through the same filter paper that we used in the first filtration. Anything that clogged it up there just makes it that much more effective the second time around. Second filtration is clear. I can already tell it is much clearer than before. Still have that junk in the filter. Nice and clear. Some you can clearly see my fingers through the solution itself on the other side. That's actually looking really good. That's it. Before we go any further, let's just be sure. Quick stannous chloride test to make sure we have gold in solution. Nice dark purple stain. That is gold in solution. So we're ready to get it out. So I'm going to use SMB, sodium metabisulfite, to get the gold out of solution. Shouldn't take a lot. I'm only expecting 3.5 to 4 grams of material. That color changes our gold coming out of solution. Another quick stannous chloride test to make sure we have it all out. Looks like there's still a little in there, so a little more SMB. The final test, hopefully. This time we see no color, all of our gold is out of solution. Go ahead and set this up on a little bit of heat, which will help it settle quickly. And then we'll come back and clean it. So the gold is settled. We're going to go ahead and decant the liquid into a temp container to ensure I don't lose any little fine particles. After a few rinses with distilled water, I'm going to go ahead and boil this in hydrochloric acid and clean it up some more. Before I do that though, I'm going to put it in a smaller beaker. Just makes it easier to work with. So I've washed it a few times. I'm going to go ahead and cover up our temp container. And we're going to add about 100 milliliters of hydrochloric acid to the gold and start our boil. So our gold has been boiling in hydrochloric acid for about 10 minutes. I'm going to go pull this off and let it cool for a few, and then I'm going to decant the acid off. There's not much color in that acid, so that's a good sign. Finally, I'm going to rinse it several times with distilled water. Then I'm going to set up on a warm burner to dry. When you're doing your drying, don't rush that step. You got to let it slowly evaporate until there's no sign of steam. You can then turn it up to get the powder really dry, but you don't want a steam explosion blowing your gold all over the hood. Right, in my previous video, I did the first 500 grams of this batch of fingers. I processed that with chemistry at the hardware store, drain cleaner, stump remover, hydrochloric acid, bleach. Check it out. There's a link in the comment below. That yielded 3.11 grams. So at the same yield, I expect this to yield somewhere around 3.8 grams. I'm combining these because I'm going to melt them up together into a final button. Okay, it looks like our scale is settling down. We're going to call it 3.74 grams. So let's melt this up. Got our powder here from the 2 runs. Get it into our melt dish. See just how we did once it's all into nice yellow metal. I like to start nice and slow around the edges. It seems like that gets a little bit of melt going, keeps powder from blowing out when the torch really gets cranked. Just a little bit of borax to pull out some impurities. And there's our button. Gonna get it into the water and quench it here. Nice, pretty yellow gold, nice little pipe in it. Not a bad button at all. Before I weigh this up and see what the real total is, I do want to say, if you have subscribed to my channel, thank you. If you haven't, hit that button below, as more refining videos are on the way. Okay, weigh time. 6.84 grams. It's pretty darn good. The button is looking really nice for a single refine. So that wraps up this video. If you enjoyed this refine, again, hit that like button, subscribe, check out my other videos. And as always, questions, thoughts, and suggestions, drop them in the comments below. Thank you for watching.